Welcome back, my poets, to Poetry 101. Today we are talking about retelling known stories, which means taking a story that your audience is very familiar with, typically something that they are familiar with from like a well-known fairy tale or like childhood story, or if depending on your culture, a well-known story from the area or etc. etc. A good example of this is modern artists, musical artists, I should say, making songs referencing the pandemic. Some of my favorites is in Headstones and Landmines by Lizzie McAlpine. She says, we hug from 6 feet, which is the social distancing distance that people had to stay away from. Also, Taylor Swift's Epiphany starts with talking about like war imagery and like how hard that was and how little sleep people got and stuff like that. And then she goes into the same, drawing a comparison between that and the hospital workers during the pandemic. And I think that's great. A good example of this is in this poem called Convergence of the Twain by Thomas Hardy. So I'm going to read some lines. It's talking about a ship, which it says by calling it the sea worm that crawls, and it describes it as grotesque, slimed, dumb, and different. So it's not alive. It's not actually like a sea worm. It's this long thing, which, you know, a boat. And then later it goes on to say, as the smart ship grew in stature, grace, and hue, its shadowy, silent distance grew the iceberg too. You might see where this is going. The next little stanza makes a reference to the intimate wedding of their later history in reference to the boat and the iceberg. Again, you should see where this is going. It also referenced August, which I think it would be when that happened. It also references earlier in the poem on this page that the boat is now underwater. So you might understand that this is about the Titanic, which I knew the first time I read this because it tells me right here, hey, this poem's about the Titanic. Some poems are really good at doing that. One of mine that I have written that's like a retelling is a retelling of the play Cyrano de Bergerac, which I know the story of from the movie Cyrano. But I'm telling the story and like alluding to things without saying this is what it is until the very last line, which is a very good way to be like, and in case you didn't know, that's what that was. I've also written a Titanic poem that does that, so I think I'm basic in that way. Some inspirations for you of things you might write your poem on just to get you started thinking on this early. The story of Medusa, the Genesis 1 story of how the earth was created. The painting of the Mona Lisa, meaning not like you're talking about the painting, but you're talking about the act of the painting being made. Or the building of the pyramids, or if you want to write something sad, 9/11. Those are things you can write a story about, alluding to the things that happened without saying, here's what is the story about. But again, as your reader reads on, they will begin to understand. I really like poems like this for one simple reason. It just takes something that your audience is very familiar with and it shows it to them in a new light, which, you know, as a Bible nerd is always super fun because for me, I'm like, yeah, I got it. This book, Romans, got it. I understand it. And it's like, okay, but think about the historical context. And I'm like, he wanted him to obey the emperor? That emperor? That's crazy. Stuff like that. I think that's actually 1st or 2nd Corinthians and not Romans, but you get my drift. So that is the beauty of it, in my opinion, is taking something your audience knows and making them think about something that they haven't thought about in reference to that. So for like Medusa, we think, oh, the monster lady, she turns people to stone. That's like the basic pop culture understanding of Medusa. But there is a deeper level there. I mean, like, the idea of, okay, well, what if Athena caused that curse on Medusa as a form of protection? What if it's not 100% Medusa's fault? Because, you know, it takes 2 to tango. Things like that. It brings to light new aspects of it, of the well-known story. Or it's just a fun way to retell something fun. I mean, you could write a poem that's like, it's Phineas and Ferb, but what if I don't tell you that this is Phineas and Ferb until the last line of the poem? You know? It's just really fun. It's kind of cheeky, and it shows a bit of genius to be able to hold back the reveal, but still have the clues there. For example, that poem being like, okay, there's a ship. The ship's underwater. There's an iceberg involved. Are you seeing where we're going? You know, it's not like making fun of you, but it's also not being like, this is the Titanic, and on the Titanic, this is what happened, you know? I think that's really cool. I think that's really fun. And if you want to know more nerdy poetry things, or if you want to read any of my poems, I have some of them here on this YouTube channel, and others I have on my Instagram at officialjustinstrikes. You can see all of my stuff over there. That is linked in my bio. My books are linked in the description down below. You can watch more videos here. You can subscribe over here. Thank you for watching.